Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our ongoing live stream. Let's Write an Adventure. This is our very first one of the new year, so happy new year to everybody who I haven't seen since our Wednesday live stream. And even if I have, happy new year again. This is our ongoing stream where we are currently working on a whole campaign for D&D specifically, but these techniques that we're talking about you could apply to any TTRPG. Um, we're going to be continuing building out one of the civilizations, one of the settlements inside our domain of dread. So if you're new to the channel or you're watching this stream for the very first time, um, what we're doing right now is we are building a complete campaign. We've done a little bit of work already on that, where we have built out the first adventure, and we kind of have an idea as to what it is that the characters is going to sort of befall their characters to start. And how they're going to get engaged in the story. And now we are backing up and we are working on sort of their initial landing. Where do they come in to this campaign setting and this adventure? Let me go ahead and share my screen with everybody here so that we can kind of go ahead and get started. Again, if you're new, uh, we're using a story structure called the story circle that I find works really well for campaign planning because it's got a manageable number of parts and it kind of gives you a general flow for how you might want your adventure to go. Again, if you're joining us for the very first time, I would point out to you that this is a pretty deep dive into adventure writing and campaign creation. Not all of these steps are necessary if you're writing your very first campaign or your very first adventure. In fact, some of this stuff you would kind of do as you run the adventure. But since we don't have real players and we have all the time in the world to kind of get in and polish these details and look at the nuances, that's what we're going to do. So, picking up from where we started off last time, or where we left off last time, I should say, um, we were working on brainstorming some physical locations within the town of Darkport, which is our working title for the initial settlement in which the characters arrive after entering this domain of dread. And we had this idea that it's a shanty town on the banks of this large inland sea, and that it's therefore kind of a seaside community, but that it's built up out of the ruins of a far more prosperous, far more um, effective civilization, the one that came before. And so it's made up of ruined buildings, hobbled together with found sort of new construction made out of new materials or found materials, very much kind of like a cargo cult kind of feel to it. Um, including bits of shipwrecks and the carcasses of monstrous creatures, whalebone, all that kind of stuff. So, we last time brainstormed a bunch of different locations that there might be a bunch of points of interest that might be within Darkport itself, and started fleshing out some of them or sort of brainstorming elements for them. This is still a very organic spot that we're in at the moment where we're not going to use all of this detail. We're not going to use everything that we come up with here, but we're kind of being loose and playful and trying to imagine the kinds of places that our characters might go and what those places might be like, giving them a little bit of description, giving them a little bit of background, stuff that we can kind of chew on when we go to narrate these adventures that the characters have here. So, last time we came up with a list, and we may not need all of this again. Of we need an inn and tavern, sort of a combination structure. We decided that we probably need a couple other watering holes, so we came up with maybe an ale house and then a dive bar. We talked about a general store and decided that we'd go with a market instead, kind of a rotating weekly market. We talked about having a smithy, which turns out to be kind of important because since there isn't any mining necessarily, or I should say there isn't much in the way of mining and ore collection that goes on in this domain of dread, that smiths would be rare and a valuable commodity. And so, we made that as sort of a single POI within Darkport. We talked a little bit about other places the characters might want to explore, things like an alchemist shop or an apothecary's. Needed some shrines. We have a couple factions that we built into the first adventure, and so they need their own little kind of base of operations within the town. We decided that since this is kind of the government of Darkport is kind of is kind of like a feudal gangland kind of enterprise, right? Where different parts of the town are controlled by different gangs, and that they're responsible for maintaining order and enforcing their rules within their own segments, and everything's kind of held in this sort of occasionally shifting power struggle that kind of results in this baseline set of, or I should say, sort of a baseline stability that's just by everybody holding on to their own piece of land by de facto have created kind of this civilization that allows the people who live in it to go about their daily business. And so we would need a thieves guild for one of those. We would need a couple other sort of smaller gang faction places like a clubhouse, a hideout, that kind of deal, headquarters for those various factions we're building into this. And then we kind of tossed in a couple things just to add a little flavor, and decide as long as we're adding flavor, they might as well be places to eat and drink, which we may or may not use. As I mentioned last time, I like to toss some of these in here maybe as a single line of description, along the lines of things like monuments as well, that kind of stuff, that just give me like touch points so that when I'm narrating navigation around the civilization or around the settlement, I can say, oh, you pass the noodle bar and then you head down such and such street, and you arrive at your destination. Just adds a little bit of orientation, adds a few little touch points, and brings some of the civilization alive. And so we'll maybe work on some of those as well. Oh, hello, Amanda. Thanks for joining us today. It's good to see you again. Happy New Year. Quinn, hello. Thanks for joining us as well. So this is probably a good time to jump in real quick and mention that this is an interactive live stream. So if you have got your own ideas and thoughts as we go through and sort of start building this out, jump in. Let me know what they are. I love getting your ideas and your thoughts on this. It really adds a lot of flavor and a lot of value to what we're doing here. So, without any further ado, I guess, let's go ahead and start brainstorming some of these locations. This, of course, is not a comprehensive list of everything that would be in the town. So if you've got some ideas for other stuff that maybe we might want to add in here, let me know. Likewise, as we're kind of going through these, I'd love to get your thoughts on what they should be like. Again, we're just keeping it loose and brainstorming today. We're just coming up with ideas. So, where shall we start? Should we start with inns and taverns, ale houses and dive bars? Should we start with kind of our shrines, some of our faction houses, or some of those peripheral touch points, like our tea houses, noodle bars, fried food carts, that kind of stuff? Let's see here. William says, I'm going through your fourth post. I've got a ghost story my PCs are working through. That's fantastic. I love a good ghost story, especially in a D&D setting. I like horror in general for role playing. I think that it suits itself really well. The horror genre suits itself really well to role playing games, just because for things to be scary, you need to interact, and you have to interact in role playing games. It's not like movies where you can step out of the room and let it run all by itself. So very cool. Ghost Story is very cool. Maybe work some of this in. Quinn says, how does this work? Pretty simple, Quinn. I'm gonna kind of work on writing this out and sort of, existentially, stream of consciousness, tell you what I'm thinking and what I'm doing in here. And as you have thoughts and suggestions and ideas, jump in. I keep one eye on the chat, and so when I hit a break in a thought process, I will kind of glance over and see what your input is, and if there's any, and we'll weave and work that in, and we kind of make this a conversation. So. Pretty straightforward stuff. So let's see here. I kind of feel like we should start with our inn and tavern. That's a touch point that we've built into one of the hooks for the adventure that we have already written for this, which is probably worthwhile kind of going back over for just a second while we're since we've got so many new people here. Um, and so we've already built out our first initial adventure for this. It's an adventure where the characters are kidnapped by a superior force led by from a faction led by an aboleth. They're briefly enslaved and then freed from their enthrallment by the intervention of an agent from the Slod-led faction. And the characters then have to escape this. We originally had it as an aboleth lair, but it turned into be more of an excavation site, a work site. Um, or end up being re-enslaved. They've got to escape, or they can end up being re-enthralled. And then during the course of the adventure, they would discover about the artifact that's being sought out here. And this is the artifact that will eventually give them sort of the key to escaping this domain of dread and getting out with their lives. But they'll also find out that it gives godlike control over the domain of dread. They'll find that out eventually. They won't find that out yet. But it gives godlike control over the domain of dread, which will leave them with some interesting choices about how to proceed and what to do about this place. So we came up with a couple adventure hooks, things like being kidnapped down at the tavern, we said tavern trapdoors, where the village tavern owner is in league with the cultist kidnappers and has built trapdoors in the floor of the tap room. And then we got, so drunks and adventurers are targeted for kidnapping. Drinks might be drugged, and unsuspecting victims are dropped through the floor to waiting kidnappers below. We might have hoods in the night, where wherever the characters bed down for the night, they're set upon in their sleep by cultist kidnappers. We also have a framed one, where the characters are immediately accused of a crime and found guilty, and they're turned over to the cultists as sort of a work release kind of thing. So sort of a corruption kind of deal there. The tavern trapdoor one falls specifically into our touch point for a tavern and an inn here. And so that's kind of the one I wanted to re-highlight for a minute, just so that as we're kind of working on this, we can think about what kind of place this inn and tavern would be. We know that this domain of dread is a dismal place. It's very overcast. The colors are very washed out, dismal sort of place. And I imagine this inn and tavern would reflect that in a lot of ways. And then it has kind of, like we said, it has these sort of trap doors in the floor. So it's not a very nice place as is. It's the sort of place where bad things happen to unsuspecting people. And that should probably be present in the atmosphere of this. Something we kind of want to do whenever we're writing locations. At least I feel whenever we're writing locations within TTRPG adventures, is we want to give them some kind of emotion attached to them. We want to sort of cue up our players to feel a certain way about a particular place. And typically, we want that to be a foreshadowing of the kinds of things that might happen there, so that every once in a while we can mix it up and we can foreshadow one thing and then have something else occur, and we get a cool little twist. But for this very beginning, I think we want to make this kind of a kind of place where they might be on their toes. So let's start kind of brainstorming a little bit here. Let's say our inn and tavern. Our inn and tavern needs to be a seedy kind of place where bad things happen to people who aren't looking out. Yet, it's a trap in a lot of ways. Thus, there has to be something about it that bluffs at safety. So it's a fine line we're walking here because we don't want to scare off our players. We don't want them to walk into this place and just go, nope, 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 and turn around and leave. Because we've got this hook here, and a cool hook that we have to pull them into our next adventure. We want this to be more of a conundrum for them. Should they stay or should they go? So, what is a place? What would be the features of a place that would seem like it might be a safe haven, but that there would be a few little things in there that would make you sort of question, you know, the kinds of people who frequent this spot here. I think maybe it should be crowded. You know, that sort of idea of safety in numbers kind of thing. You know, there's a lot of people here, so only so much can go down. But it should be a rough and tumble kind of crowd, I think. And of course, let me know if you've got other ideas. Does this work? Quinn says a beautiful forest. Oh, you mean as a place that might seem inviting, but is actually dangerous? Yeah, absolutely. And that might be something we work into a different place in this adventure. Although we could think about how a beautiful forest, you know, the sorts of features of a beautiful forest and how they might affect how we view this seaside tavern here. Yeah, something to think about, because that is, you know, as long as we're going down that track, because it's an inn and a tavern. We need it to be the building. We need it to be something specific because we've already kind of built some stuff in this. But there are features of a beautiful forest that make it inviting. There's light. There's trees. There's this sense of peace that can go along with it. There's beautiful things to be found, flowers and art. Well, in their tavern there might be art, but flowers and other natural sort of fascinations. But then again, a forest also has a lot of places to hide. It's got a lot of you know, nooks and crannies and recesses and things that go by unseen. Lots of occlusions from view. And so maybe that's some things we should think about here. Maybe there's a sense of beauty on the inside here. Maybe there's an artistry that has gone into creating the interior of this place. So maybe it's not as dark and dismal as the rest of the world is around it and outside. Maybe it has this sense of this sense of beauty on the inside. And but it's, you know, it's crowded and it's not an open kind of space. Maybe there's lots of little again, nooks and crannies, dark corners, and to have private conversations and booths and twists and turns and places to kind of lose sight of people. And so maybe it's kind of an amalgamation of smaller rooms that have been kind of knitted together to create this larger building. You know, that was a really good idea, Quinn. I think that led us down a cool path. I like that. I like that a lot. So let's say, let's capture that before I completely lose it. Okay, so maybe the interior is a inviting, beautiful space. There's art on the walls and a theme to this, and a theme that that makes the place feel homey. Yet it has lots of nooks and crannies, dark corners, and twists. It's an amalgamation, and fix my spelling there. It's an amalgamation of smaller rooms knitted together to create a larger building. Consequently, it's easy to lose line of sight. I think maybe the tavern, we'll say at least, is crowded. But the, we'll say it's crowded. Patrons are a rough and tumble kind of folk, but maybe they're singing sea shanties and laughter that give the place warmth the exterior lacks. And so now we end up with this trap, which I really like the idea of. So, yeah, okay. I think that's a cool little bit of information about our inn and tavern here. It's going to need a name, so if anybody has any ideas for what we might call this thing, I am certainly open to them. Um, Naming inns and taverns, I think, is always a lot of fun because you can come up with some pretty fun things that you'd never call another business um, to give them character. So maybe we'll put a, if you come up with some names, let me know. And in the meantime, let's jump into some other places here. What else do we want to brainstorm? We probably need a counterpoint to this. We probably need some place that's a little that's a lot seedier, maybe. Maybe perhaps not actually as dangerous. Something that's less of a trap. Let's see here. William says perhaps there's a local farmer herbalist sitting at a table with the cook bartering for herbs. The old cook is a healer known for her herbal meds. Just an everyday exchange selling healing herbs. Yeah, yeah. One of the things that you can really do to add sort of a master class kind of level to your descriptions of a place is introducing them with action like that. The idea that when you walk in, you don't just describe the place itself, but you describe the things that are going on in it. That's going to sell the atmosphere so much better than just going, well, it's all dark wood and leather and it smells of pipe smoke. Talking about, you walk in and you see, the cook and an herbalist bartering over herbs. You see a group of rough-looking sailors, arms over each other's shoulders, singing sea shanties. Wow, she sells at the seashore. Sea shanties, as as they sway and slosh their tankards of ale around. Things like that are all going to help you really sell the atmosphere of this place. And you can write all that kind of stuff out, absolutely. If it helps you, I would encourage you to do that. I find I write kind of like the vibe that I want in a place, and then I will imagine when I go to run the adventure, sort of the action that's happening in there. Now, if there's something in particular that I want to place in there, like I want to remember that, there are, rough and tumble sort of sailors singing sea shanties, I will note that down as well. So yeah, William, that's a great point about uh, you know putting those little vignettes in there to create that atmosphere and make the place feel one way or another. I like that. All right, so let's make a counterpoint to that. Let's create a dive bar that feels unsafe, but is actually in many ways safer. Maybe it's a place where they could meet some important people or some valuable NPCs, if not now, then later. Um, so let's look at working that in here as well. Um, let's say we need a seedy, scary dive bar, a place that feels less safe than it is. This is a place characters might go for private conversations or to find illicit or secret things. This is a place for making contacts outside of normal channels. I should say that it's a dark place, I think. Again, let me know what you think. But a dark place, I would imagine it's kind of like it's dark to the point where it feels smaller than it is. It almost feels like you're kind of having to shoulders with people, rub elbows with people as you kind of move through the space. And yeah, again, I think it's probably a little more open in design, but there's probably booths as opposed to tables along the walls. Um, I don't think this is a place for singing. I don't think that there's a lot of drunken bar songs going on in this place. I think it's a lot of serious faces, maybe. Um, Games like darts with daggers, throwing daggers instead of darts, that kind of stuff. Um, Maybe that kind of thing going on in here. It's the kind of place that gets quiet for a moment when somebody new walks in, I think. Um, so let's say it's dark, the point of feeling much smaller than it actually is. The This is a place for regulars who grow quiet in their conversations when someone new walks in. I imagine maybe there's some unspoken ritual of testing out new people to figure out who they are and what they're about. Maybe hazing of some kind. And I don't mean that in like the, kind of the fraternity kind of idea of hazing. I mean that sort of, maybe somebody is intentionally picks an argument to kind of see how things are going to go down. You get pushed or shoved around. Somebody tries to pick your pocket. Somebody tries to shake you down for a drink, something along those lines. Um, Perhaps someone tries to shake the characters down for a free drink, or someone tries to pick their pocket. All of this is to see if they can hang, like that kind of testing in a place like this. And then once you're in, that this is a spot where you can actually make some useful acquaintances. William says, an older man scoffs at them. You have no idea who I am, do you? Yeah, that could be a good one too. That's a great little, you know, little action element there, where you can have sort of that conversation where people are posturing around them. Um, and they have your characters realize that they kind of are out of their depth for a moment. They might have to prove themselves here a little bit, but that once they do, they can make some real useful NPCs here, some really useful friendships and contacts other people here, that we can build on throughout the adventure and later parts of our campaign. All right. Okay. All right. So we got a little bit about our dive bar here. I feel like our alehouse should be kind of a middle point, but it needs something distinct. It needs to have some use in it. So I don't know that I necessarily have an idea off the top of my head for that. I'm sorry. Let's see here. William says, "I sealed in blood." Exactly. Exactly. Our inn and tavern is a place where people will, would slit your throat for the coins in your pocket. But our dive bar is a place that once your blood, once your family, that they'd look out for you there. So, our alehouse, I think, should be somewhere in between, but at the same time, it needs to have something distinct about it. It needs to have a value for going there. And so we have to kind of think about some of that. Not sure I've got an idea for that just yet off the top of my head, and maybe it'll come to us as we work our way through this. If you've got some thoughts on it, though, chime in, man. Let me know. Let me know, gang. In the meantime, though, let's take a look at some other stuff here. So we've got some factions that we were working on last time. We have two factions that we're introducing in the sort of in the beginning in our first story here. Our Aboleth-led faction and our Slod-led faction, and we've done some work with our Aboleth faction as part of our first adventure, our need section of our story structure of our story circle here, where we create an initial need, something that the characters realize that they need to achieve or to do. And so we had spent some last time working a little bit on our Slod faction's location. So let's think about. Maybe we should think about some of the other factions that are here. Do a little brainstorming for them as well. Some of the smaller groups. We obviously want to have some sort of thieves guild. I think that's kind of that's the sort of thing that our players are going to expect. They're going to ask about, and we don't have to frame it as a thieves guild per se, but it should still fill that same kind of role. And then we need a couple other factions potentially, just to kind of round out our city, or our I guess it's not really a city, more of a town here. So let's think about what other sorts of factions we might have. We could think of the Thieves Guild to start. That's probably got the best. Probably is the easiest one to go with. So let's think about that for a moment. So sort of your prototypical Thieves Guild, right, is, you think of in a lot of fantasy spaces is kind of this, this hive down in the sewers and the secret hideout and that kind of deal. But this is a place where it wouldn't have to be secret necessarily. They might choose to keep it secret, just depending on the the strategies and the mindset of this particular guild. Um, but there isn't. I don't think we don't necessarily have to make it kind of this underground, you know, sewer hive like we might have in other places here. We could make it something else, um, something a little more nautical, perhaps, since this is a seaside town. Um, hmm, hmm. We could do something like we could have it inside the, um, you know, sort of inside an old shipwreck. We could have that. We could have something like that. So it's not like many of the other buildings in town. It could be a place where a wave, a storm knocked a ship, like a sailing ship, inland and like landed it among the city. And so now this is kind of like, uh, you know, they built out of the wreckage of this to build their the guild. Um, and inside, you could see it being, on the outside it looks, you see the remnants, the wreckage there. It's the old wood. It's covered in a little bit of, lichen and maybe a little bit of the algae and slime just from the moisture in the air and that kind of deal. But the inside is more comfortable. It's almost palatial in a certain way. It's richer and wealthier. Maybe this is the wealthiest guild or the wealthiest gang in Darkport. Could be. I mean, in a place ruled by gangs, if thieving, if you're stealing from them all, you might be able to amass a certain amount of wealth. Um, so, hmm, let's start there. Let's start there. Let's say this building is crafted from the wreckage of a sailing ship. That was washed inland after a terrible storm. The exterior looks like a somewhat repaired derelict that is constantly and discreetly guarded. However, the inside is I think palatial is probably not the right word for it. I kind of get opium house vibes. I don't know if you've ever, watched any of the, uh, frankly, anything that involves an opium den from the Victorian age or something along those lines, where it's a lot of beds and cushions and smoky air and that kind of deal, and curtains and what have you. Um, I kind of have, heavy fabric curtains. I kind of have this idea that maybe that's kind of what it's like in this place where the rooms are segmented by these heavy draperies and there's lots of places to sit and lounge. Um, and so you have, I don't know, I envision sort of this atmosphere of the thieves who are hanging out there almost feline in nature, and that they constantly seem to be lounging and dozing and doing nothing, but it's really just kind of like coiled energy. They're waiting for action, kind of thing to spring in at any moment. um, so there's a kind of a tension in the atmosphere I would get here, belied by sort of the laziness that uh, it that it purports. Um, I don't know. What do you all think of that? Let me know if you've got thoughts on that. Um, let's see here. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and we'll work with that, and we'll change it if we need to. Let's see here. However, the inside has almost an opium den kind of feel to it. Let's see, there are, no, let's say the rooms are mostly segmented by thick curtains and draperies. The air is smoky and sweet. Let's see here, pillows, settees, and low beds clutter each room. Thieves who spend time here lounge, apparently inactive, but watch everything with the keenness of a cat. So that there's a tension in the air, a feeling of coiled spring that could go off at the slightest misstep. It's kind of how I envision that place. Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else should we deal with here? Maybe we tackle some of our little smaller guys here. Just a comment or two. Our tea houses, our noodle bars, our fried food carts. Um, gives us some little touch points that add a little culture to Darkport, the kind of place that it is. So let's see here. Maybe let's start with our fried food carts. Fried food is just one of those things that you find in, fried or grilled food is one of those things you find in just pretty much every city in the world. And so it just kind of makes sense, I think, for there to be a food stall or a food cart of some kind. It doesn't have to be fried necessarily. Maybe it's grilled here. Although I imagine there's no shortage of oil in this domain of dread with the kind of sea creatures that exist here. It could be sort of that smoky whale oil that they could be frying things in. Plenty of fats, fish oil and what have you. So let's see here. Simple wooden cart with a stove, the charcoal. We'll say with a wood stove attached. Sells, I think maybe like fried squid and fried fish. Sells primarily fried squid and fish on a stick. Occasionally, these carts have fried poultry in the form of seagulls captured and prepared like fried chicken. Let's see here. What does a cart look like? You know, it's a little wooden cart, like we said, little stove with a, we'll say, little wooden stove attached to the back end, and maybe what does it smell like? Well, it would smell like fried foods, wouldn't it? The smell of fried foods follows the cart and can be smelled at least a street away. So kind of, you know, again, kind of a navigational point here as well, but also a little atmosphere point as we're, you know, as we're navigating our dark port here, and we're narrating players getting or characters going from point A to point B. You know, we can talk about the smell of the fried food cart, and then they come around the corner and there it is. They pass it and they continue on, and yada yada yada. So that's probably all we need for that. Let's see here. Let's knock out our tea house, and then maybe we'll wrap up for the day. So let's say I'm imagining just you know, sort of low ceilinged little places here where it's you know, it's just a very small kind of kitchen. You get a little bit of food there, again, mostly tea, but there's a sort of a covered area to get out of the rain. You could sit in and eat in. So this is probably our largest. It's small, but it's still our largest, you know, restaurant that might exist in a place like this. Something again where the characters can kind of go. If they wanted to find something specific to eat or sit down and talk, or, you know, I could see role playing scenes kind of happening in a place like this. But very kind of open air, just sort of a roof, low roof over a couple benches, attached to a very small kitchen, I'm thinking. So let's see here. The tea houses are small, yet the largest restaurants found in Darkport. They are I have the largest Darkport. Let's see here. They are little more than a low ceilinged pavilion. Correct my spelling here. Pavilion attached to a small kitchen. Benches, let's see here. Benches and long tables fill the space beneath the pavilion, the open-sided pavilion. Customers can come here for a simple bite drink and to get out of the persistent rain that plagues this domain of dread. Soups are commonly served here, and the air is thick with the aromas of tea and fish stew. Okay. All right. So I think since we're kind of getting close to our time here, and it looks like our interaction's dwindled a little bit, let's go ahead and put a pin in it, and we will pick up next time doing some more brainstorming on Darkport, I think. As always, we'll continue next Monday, so that'll be Monday the 13th of January if you're watching this in real time. Just want to say, as always, thank you so much for participating in this. This live stream is so much more fun when I get the interaction that I get from you all and your ideas, your thoughts, and your opinions as we kind of work through this. But still, it's fun just to have you with me as we hang out and chat as I work on this campaign and you work on your own adventures, contributing to this one as you see fit. So thank you again so much. As I have mentioned before, by the way, I do another live stream on Wednesdays. That one's more of a chit-chatty, let's talk about TTRPGs kind of one. And so I'm always looking for topics and ideas on that. If you have got some thoughts, something that you'd like discussed or want to chat about in terms of TTRPGs, doesn't have to be D&D, it can be any one of them in general. Let me know. Again, love to get your input on that sort of stuff. Love to have those conversations. That one is Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central Time if you're in the United States. And it lasts for 20, 30 minutes. It's a little shorter than this one. And again, a little more chit-chatty, a little less creative. So still a fun one to check out. Thank you again for hanging out with me. If you've enjoyed this live stream, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All that kind of stuff helps this channel grow and helps me keep doing what I'm doing here. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.